Alright, let's dive into Abiotic Factor, one of the coolest indie sci-fi games out right now. This game is such a wild mix. It's got survival and crafting at its core, but then it throws in action, horror, and even stealth. You're stuck in this massive underground facility that's crawling with interdimensional creatures, and trust me, you're going to need more than just your fists if you want to make it out alive. The good news? You can actually craft some seriously powerful weapons to fight back, as long as you know where to look and what to gather. Now here's the fun part. While some weapons are tucked away in hidden corners of the map, others can be built completely from scratch if you collect the right blueprints and materials. That means you don't always have to rely on luck or exploration. Sometimes the best gear comes from your own two hands. In this video, we're going to break down the absolute best weapons you can craft anywhere in Abiotic Factor, and why they're total game changers when you're face to face with the horrors waiting in those dark corridors. I'm quickly moving on to the video. Before we start, if you enjoy these types of list videos, don't forget to like the video and subscribe. Enjoy watching! Oi! Let us talk about one of the most fun starter weapons you can put together in Abiotic Factor, the pipe pistol. This little improvised firearm may not look like much, but it is surprisingly reliable in the early game. It only fires a single shot before you need to reload, which feels a bit slow, but the damage it delivers makes up for it. Against smaller enemies, 2 well-placed shots are usually all you need, and it can even help you break down objects when you are short on tools. So while it is not the flashiest option, it definitely earns its spot in your survival kit. Crafting it is also part of the fun. You will need 1 coil, 1 power cell, 1 stapler, and 1 metal pipe. Coils usually come from dismantling old computer monitors or taking apart robots. Staplers are most often found in office areas, which makes sense if you think about it. Metal pipes can be ripped straight out of the walls in certain locations. As for the power cell, you will not find it lying around. You will have to build it yourself at a crafting bench. It feels very much like you are scrounging together random junk to make something dangerous, which fits perfectly with the game's survival theme. Now, is the pipe pistol going to carry you through the entire game? Absolutely not! It gets outclassed fairly quickly once you start unlocking better firearms, and you will probably replace it the moment you can. But as a first taste of ranged combat in Abiotic Factor, it is awesome. It teaches you how valuable scavenging and crafting are, while still giving you enough firepower to survive those early encounters. Think of it as your training wheels in weapon crafting. Simple, scrappy, and just strong enough to save your life when it matters. Next up on the list of craftable weapons in Abiotic Factor is the Scrap Shot, a handmade shotgun that hits like a truck at close range. If you enjoyed the pipe pistol, think of the Scrap Shot as its bigger, meaner cousin. It is still a single-shot weapon with a fairly slow reload, but the payoff is worth it. At short distances, it deals devastating damage to enemies, and it is just as effective when you need to blast apart objects blocking your way. It feels incredibly satisfying to pull the trigger and watch everything in front of you crumble. When it comes to building one, the Scrap Shot is fairly straightforward. You will need a coil, a power cell, and a piece of rebar. Just like before, coils can be salvaged from old computers or dismantled robots. The power cell can either be found if you are lucky, or crafted directly at a bench. Rebars, on the other hand, are scattered all around the manufacturing sector, so you will definitely want to make a pit stop there to grab a few. Once you put everything together, you will have a shotgun that feels more reliable than the pipe pistol in almost every situation. The best part about the Scrap Shot is that it can also be charged to pack even more punch. This means that not only does it outclass the pipe pistol, but it also becomes a weapon you can hold on to a little longer before moving on to late-game firearms. Sure, it will not match the speed and versatility of advanced guns, but in those intense close-quarters encounters, nothing clears a room quite like the Scrap Shot. It is simple, powerful, and one of the most satisfying early-game weapons to craft. The Lightning Spear is where melee combat in Abiotic Factor starts to feel truly electrifying, literally. At first glance, it looks like a simple upgrade over the basic makeshift spear, but once you swing it, you realize just how much stronger it is. Every strike unleashes an electronic discharge, adding extra energy damage on top of its already impressive reach. It is long enough to keep enemies at a distance, while still dishing out the kind of damage that makes you feel unstoppable in close combat. Crafting it, however, is not as simple as picking up some junk and slapping it together. You will need one rebar, one projection matrix, one capacitor, and one energy brick. The rebar is fairly easy to grab from the manufacturing sector, but the capacitor requires a little more risk. You will have to take it from electropests. As for the projection matrix and energy brick, those are not lying around. You will need to craft them yourself, which makes the lightning spear a bit more of an investment compared to other early weapons. That extra effort is worth it though. The lightning spear is not just an upgraded stick with some wires. It is one of the best melee options you can get your hands on. The added energy damage makes fights feel faster and more brutal, and the range means you do not always have to trade blows up close. In a game where ammo is scarce and conserving resources is key, having a melee weapon that can hang with the best firearms is a huge advantage. It takes work to build, but once you have it, you will not want to put it down. If you are looking for a melee weapon that makes you feel like an unstoppable wrecking ball, the explosive sledge is the way to go. This beast of a weapon does not just crush enemies with raw force, it detonates on impact, dealing massive area of effect damage. That means whether you are up against a towering creature or a swarm of smaller pests, one good swing can clear the field in dramatic fashion. It is one of those weapons that makes you laugh the first time you use it because of how ridiculous and overpowered it feels. Of course, getting your hands on one is not so simple. The recipe requires a regular sledgehammer, a capacitor, a reinforced hose, and military electronics. The base sledgehammer can be picked up in a few key spots like the mines, the train, or around the synchrotron. The reinforced hose has to be crafted, while capacitors are harvested from the always annoying electropests. The trickiest part is tracking down military electronics, which can be pulled from military radios if you know where to look. Every piece of this build feels like a mini adventure on its own, but once you finally put it together, the payoff is incredible. The explosive sledge is not just a weapon, it is a statement. It is loud, devastating, and a little bit reckless, which makes it perfect for those moments when you just want to smash everything in sight. Ammo? Not a problem. Close-range enemies? Gone in an instant. It is easily one of the most powerful melee weapons in Abiotic Factor, and while it takes effort to craft, it is worth every second you spend chasing down the components. The makeshift crossbow is one of those weapons that feels like it was built out of pure desperation, but somehow it works surprisingly well. It is not flashy, it is not high-powered, but for dealing with smaller creatures early on, it is more than enough. Since it is a ranged weapon, you can keep some distance between yourself and whatever is crawling towards you, which is always a big plus when you are still getting your bearings in Abiotic Factor. It is simple, it is scrappy, and it gets the job done. The best part is just how easy it is to put together. All you need is a rubber band ball, a desk leg, a piece of plastic scrap, and a stapler. These items are found almost immediately in the office areas, making the makeshift crossbow one of the first ranged weapons most players will craft. You will need a crafting bench to actually assemble it, but that is a small price to pay considering how accessible the materials are. Even if you break apart office furniture, you can get desk legs and plastic scraps, so there is never really a shortage of parts. As for ammo, the crossbow uses makeshift bolts, which are just as easy to craft. By combining pens with metal scraps, you can quickly stock up on arrows without having to hunt for rare resources. This makes the crossbow not only easy to build, but also practical to maintain. Sure, it will not hold up forever once tougher enemies show up, but in those early hours when survival is all about making the most of what you have, the makeshift crossbow shines as one of the most beginner-friendly weapons in the game. The Electro Thrower is where Abiotic Factor really lets you feel like a mad scientist with a death ray. Instead of bullets or bolts, this thing fires a sustained beam of pure energy that melts through enemies. It is not just about raw power either. The beam can stun robotic enemies, locking them down while you keep burning them away. The first time you use it, it feels like flipping on a lightsaber-sized flamethrower, and suddenly even the nastiest creatures do not seem quite as intimidating. Crafting the Electro Thrower does take a bit of work though. You will need an energy brick, a capacitor, a canister, and a box of screws. The energy brick has to be assembled at a crafting station, so there is no easy shortcut for that one. Capacitors, as always, come from those buzzing electropests, which means you will be risking a few zaps to get your hands on one. The canister can be salvaged from fire extinguishers, while boxes of screws are scattered throughout supply rooms and engineering areas. None of these materials are impossible to get, but they definitely require a bit more effort than your average early game weapon. Once you finally assemble it, though, the Electro Thrower feels like a game changer. It is one of the most powerful energy-based weapons you can build, giving you incredible sustained damage while also disabling mechanical threats. Sure, the crafting grind is tougher compared to something like the makeshift crossbow or pipe pistol, but the payoff is worth every second. It is flashy, it is devastating, and it makes you feel like you are wielding the future in your hands. The grinder is one of the wildest weapons you can put together in Abiotic Factor, and it is clearly a love letter to classic sci-fi games. Imagine mixing the chaotic energy of a saw blade launcher with the sheer fun of bouncing projectiles around a room. That is exactly what the grinder delivers. Instead of bullets or beams, you are firing grinder discs that ricochet off the walls, turning any fight into absolute chaos. It is messy, unpredictable, and incredibly fun to use, especially when enemies have nowhere to hide from those flying blades. Building the grinder requires a few specialized components: one air compressor, one computation brick, and one reinforced hose. The air compressor can be picked up at the dig site, so you will want to make a trip out there early if you are set on crafting this weapon. The computation brick is something you will need to craft yourself, using various computer and robot parts. Finally, the reinforced hose also has to be crafted, combining a hose with steel cable and a box of screws. It is a little more complex than your average weapon recipe, but the result is worth it. What makes the grinder shine is not just its raw power, but the sheer chaos it introduces into a fight. Grinder discs bounce unpredictably, shredding enemies and creating that satisfying sense of mayhem every time you pull the trigger. It is not the most precise weapon in your arsenal, but it is one of the most entertaining, and sometimes that is exactly what you need. In a game where survival can feel tense and stressful, the grinder is a perfect reminder that destruction can also be fun. The video ends here. See you in another video. Don't forget to subscribe.